Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Thursday, Dr. Dennis Day, and with me, Chantelle, your hostess with the mostess here on Aquarius, Rising Africa. Very happy to have you guys all here. And yeah, before I bring Dr. Dennis on, just one or two announcements. And I hope these techno bugs are going to leave us alone tonight because, goodness me, the last few weeks have been shocking. Anyway, Thursday, tomorrow, today is Thursday, tomorrow is Friday. And we've got Holly Baglio on Friday again, same time as what it is now, 6 o'clock Central Africa time. Saturday, Jerry Mazdinski, again 6 o'clock Central Africa time. Sunday, 3 o'clock, we've got Jesse's Patreon, the book club. That's usually next weekend, but this time it'll be this weekend. And then Sunday Loop at 6 o'clock on Sunday, and we're going to be doing some of Caleb Jade's reruns this weekend. So, and of course, you all know we're turning 5 next week. So, I want to just actually quickly put up da da da. There's our little flyer. So, next week we turn 5, and which is in fact exactly a week from today. So I am going to be asking, well, I'm going to be putting out 5 of my biggest mind blowers over the past 5 years, kind of good and bad. Okay. And then, of course, I'm inviting you all to maybe either do a little video clip, a minute or two, or send us an email or something like that. And just, yeah, send us your comments, your feedback, how it's been for you over the past 5 years. I mean, that'll be truly amazing. And that is, of course, you can see the email address on there, Aquarius Rising, or one word, 001 at gmail.com. So please won't you just send us your um, feedback. So we're going to be having a little birthday celebration next week this time. How nice is that? Okay, nice thing and action. I'm off now because I am lagging and everything is, of course, half time at the moment. There I am. Okay, guys. Well, without any further ado, with all this lagging and dragging, here is Dr. Dennis. Hello,
Hello, it's
Dennis.
good to be
How are you?
good to be
Lovely
back on board
to have
again.
you again.
I was listening to your announcement. I will have to definitely send you a virtual birthday cake with candles. Okay, absolutely for that 5 years. That's a quite an accomplishment. Absolutely.
I got to tell you, Dennis, it's been amazing. I mean, we of course got struck. We were deleted, but they're definitely not defeated. And it's been a slow journey up, I got to tell you, because we're so shadow banned. But I always feel like, the person, well, the people that are watching are the ones that are meant to see. I mean, this information is not for everyone, that's for sure. It is definitely, for people that can digest it. And as we digest it, so it becomes more digestible to others as well. So again, I want to just say thank you to everybody. You guys are amazing. My viewers, the lovers, the haters, what will we do without you? I really appreciate you
Yep.
guys. Obviously, it's got to be you guys that watch the shows and that appreciate the content that we're putting out there. And it's not easy content to digest, that's for sure. But I appreciate you guys very, very much. Lisa, you are the best, babe. You are definitely the best. Lisa Dean, thank you.
Well, thank you. And, definitely, I
Over to
told
you,
a friend of
Dennis.
mine that not long ago. If you've got a lot of haters, you're probably doing something right. So that's usually par for the course. Definitely. I like to keep. That's the way it goes with my channel. I like to kind of keep them guessing. What the heck is he going to do next? That keeps them off guard. Definitely. But that is good. A great anniversary, absolutely. So you do need some definite congratulations on that, and it's good to have. That's what I like about programs and channels like yours. You're not afraid to pull the truth out from where it's been hidden sometimes.
Mm.
And that's what we've got to do. And that's, of course, why one of the reasons why I named my channel Hunting the Shadows. Sometimes you got to go into the shadows to pull the truth out. That's where they hide it. But it's never good when you hide stuff
You
from
have to.
people. And I don't like that. I don't like them hiding stuff from us. So definitely, that's why I like channels like this one. Absolutely. And, matter of fact, I was going to tell you a little funny story. I had a friend, come to me the other day. He said, I wrote a book, about the woke movement and all that stuff that's going on with that. And he said, but I'm having a hard time finding a title for it. And I said, well, that's not bad. I said, here's your title. If it's about the woke stuff, the woke movement, here's your title. Wake me when we get there. So he kind of that one. So yeah, maybe one day we will all wake up when we get there. Hopefully, absolutely.
That is so true. That is so true. Well, some of us are driving, and yeah, unfortunately, we've got to be the ones that wake. But I got to tell you, it has been amazing. I would not, I would really not choose to do anything else in my life. I know that what I'm doing is where I'm meant to be. And anyone, Dennis, you would know as well, anyone who's doing these sorts of topics, I sometimes watch this really cutesy stuff on YouTube with these people like talking about like really, just normal stuff, everyday stuff, and doing, I don't know, responses to certain things. And they've got like millions of viewers, and it's light and it's funny and it's enjoyable. It doesn't make one think too much and doesn't make one dig too deep. And I often think, well, there have been times I'm thinking, gosh, shouldn't I just do that? But
Yeah,
I wouldn't be any
I've
other
been there too.
place
I've
in the
been in that
world, that is for
situation
sure.
too. Absolutely. Where you think, well, sometimes what am I doing here? But then somebody comes along and kind of reminds you, why you're doing it all. But it kind of reminds me when you were talking about that very famous quote from Lord of the Rings. When he was, I think he was telling the guy in there, he said, there's so little good in this world, but it's worth fighting for. And that's so very true. The good is always worth fighting for. And
Right.
we're going to talk about that today. The good in some of us and the bad too. So there's the bad and there's the bad side of us as well. We got to always recognize that. But but today I think we'll talk a little bit about what have you lost. What parts are missing. Sometimes as we go through life, we miss some stuff. We get some stuff missing and lost out there. And as everybody who knows me knows that one of my favorite books, one of my favorite novels, is Frankenstein. And I love to read it once in a while. Great. The woman who wrote it, Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley, was a genius. Okay, she was absolutely a genius in my book, and it's such a well written story. But the interesting thing about the Frankenstein's monster part of it, not Doctor Frankenstein, but the monster it was truly a man of many parts. Okay, you can say that about him. He had a
Right.
lot of different parts in him. He came from a lot of different people. And I was watching an adaptation of that the other day, Shanty, where um, uh, it was a different adaptation of Frankenstein, where the monster hears somebody reading the Bible, and he reads that passage where it says, we are legion, for we are many. So that's what he named himself. My name is Legion, for we are many. He comes from many different parts, and we do too. In certain ways, we're not monsters. We're not built like that, but we have parts to us as well. And although they're sometimes obviously not seen, these parts we're going to talk about today. Now, you got arms and legs and a head and all that. That's different parts, definitely. But there are other parts in you that can't be seen sometimes, and that's what we're going to talk about today: the emotional parts of us that sometimes we can't see in other people. But they play a very important role and a very important part in our lives. But here's the thing about it: we're living in such a different age now, Shanty, and that's what we're going to address today. We're living in an age of what I call influence. We're being influenced on every side, constantly, day in and day out. They're pounding on us. They're shoving ideas in our heads. They're telling us you need to do this, you need to do that. If you go on TikTok or you go on Instagram, you got people saying you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to. We're being pounded day in day out by these influences, and here's the thing about that, and it is good in one way because we're exposed to so many different things and viewpoints, but it's bad in another way because definitely it does distract us sometimes, and it also gives us disinformation a lot too. There's a lot of misinformation out there. And some of it is on purpose. We got to recognize that. We got to remember, we got to realize that some people are purposely misleading us with a lot of this stuff. And that's when we end up missing parts of ourselves if we're not careful. We let these things twist and bend us in the wrong way. We can end up coming out with different viewpoints that are not good sometimes, and they can be detrimental to us and people around us. This is, I believe, one way that narcissistic people are born because they kind of they get to the point where they're pushed this way, and that way, and they say, I'm not going to listen to anybody anymore. Everything I believe from now on is correct. Okay? That's the way they look at it, and they get to that point where they get fed up, and I can kind of see where they're coming from on that because you've got so much of this, influence going on. And, but today we're going to talk about the influences that are not good for us, and they do things to us. And a lot of this, you can blame the government for a lot of it. Okay, you can do that. You can blame evil and darkness for a lot of it. You can do that too. But we're also our own victims sometimes in this. We are our own worst enemies because we embrace things that are not good for us a lot of times. We do. We're very good at that. And we don't let healing in our lives. We don't heal from the wounds and scars that we accumulate as we go along. We need to focus more on healing, and getting back to the level that we were once on, and replacing these missing parts of ourselves that turn up missing from us in these respects. And one of the things I think that we can end up missing are our standards that we have. When we grow up and we start becoming adults, we form our standards that we have, either because our family gave us a prototype to go by, our mother or father influences, or our siblings influences. We have standards, that we embrace. Just like, so for instance, it's not good, it's not right to steal something, or it's not right to lie to someone. And it's not right to, violate your marriage vows, and it's not right to do certain things. We know that. There's standards that we go by. We call them morals, by the way. They're very moralistic stuff. Okay, but sometimes in life we can lose touch with those standards and morals. We can lose them or misplace them or deaden them. We can kind of push them down to where we are. They don't bother us anymore. And that's what we've got to be very careful about, because the society that we live in today is pushing us 10,000 different ways, pushing and pulling us. Do this, do that, do that. You gotta have this to live. You gotta have that. A lot of it, unfortunately, is advertising. Advertisers are good at telling you, hey, you can't go on anymore, any further in your life without this product. This product's gonna make you happy. It's gonna make you feel. It's gonna make you a better person. It's gonna make your life better. You know. Well, listen, folks, they're selling you a bill of goods here, okay? Because that's not true. And a lot of this stuff they're telling you, I got to break the bad news to you, is not real. It's not true. They have ulterior motives behind it, that they want to influence you in a bad way. Okay, and we got to understand that, and that's very threatening to us because it can make us lose our standards. We can misplace our morals if we're not careful. And I asked somebody this the other day, and I want you to think about it very closely. Are you the same person that you were 10 years ago? Are you really the same person 10 years ago that you are today? No, you're not. You may think you are, but no, you're not. Because the progress of life changes you day by day by day. You change constantly and that. But there are certain standards that you hold to that keeps you from changing in certain ways. And those are your morals, your standards, the things that you live up to. Just like people that we have in our past idolized. We've all had our heroes, somebody we looked up to, somebody that, we wanted to emulate and be like them. But when they do bad things or they don't hold the bar up where it needs to be, we become very disappointed in them and we lose our hero. And we can do that with our standards as well, with the important parts of us. If we're not careful, we can lose touch with them. We can lose them. We can lose these parts will become missing. And it's just like, and I know we've all experienced it from time to time. Something in your house turns up missing. It always happens, usually on a weekly basis. Something turns up missing. Now, what did I do with that? Where's it at? And sometimes it can be just as
Daily
simple as your
basis.
glasses sticking on top of your head. Where are they at? You start looking around with those. But that's okay. You're going to misplace things. Okay. That's just life. Things are going to happen like that. And sometimes you never find them again. I have had things you've never found again. I don't know what happened to them. Somebody either took them or what. I don't know. Maybe they went off into some other dimension. I have no idea. But
Dennis,
the
I am so sure that that happens. There is just no ways that that does not happen because there are things in my life that have literally, and I'm talking about items, like silly items, like I can't even think now, but literally from one minute to the next, they are gone, 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 gone. And it's
no,
no
it,
one else is in the house except me. Um, it's not my cats. I look high and low, and I have done it. And eventually, one day, it just dawned on me. I'm telling
well
you,
in
this thing slipped through a
folklore,
portal.
in folklore, people used to blame that on house spirits. Would do that. House spirits have hid
I'm
my
I'm
glasses, or
I'm
the
gonna
house
I'm
spirits
gonna
have
go
come.
with that.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going with that because it's the mischievous fairies that play nonsense. They're tricksters. I mean, they're not necessarily bad. It's just like naughty kids playing tricks on you, right? I am convinced I've had that for sure.
Absolutely. They enjoy playing these tricks on you, I think. It brightens their day up when they can do that to you. But there are very important stuff that we can end up missing that goes beyond mere objects and items. We can lose some very important stuff like sympathy and empathy for people, feeling for people, love for people. We can lose those things, and they're very important. And we don't want to ever lose those things. That's why I asked you the question: are you the same person you were 10 years ago? Are you the same person you were 1 year ago? No, you're not. Because
No.
influences around you, not just you yourself, you change yourself, of course, but influences around you, like those house spirits, they're just always sneaking around stealing stuff from you. These influences are taking things away from you, and they're deadening you to things. They're making you. They're compromising you. That's what they're doing. I hate that word compromise. I don't like compromise because compromise means that something's already found a door into you somehow or another. Okay, something's already worked its way in where it shouldn't be. Compromise is not good in a lot of things. Now, sometimes it can be good because it preserves you in a way, but I'm talking about dark compromises are not good, definitely not. And we do know that there are people out there, Shanty, who have made dark contracts with dark forces. They have compromised themselves with their very souls. That's a bad thing to think about, you know. And but these things can also change us without us knowing it. They can almost rob us of the things that we hold most dear, and that's what we've got to be very careful about. We need to
Yeah.
stop and examine ourselves once in a while and say, hey, you know, what how do I feel about this, or what's going on with this, or if I've been wounded in a way, and I'm talking about psychically or spiritually wounded in some way, am I healing from that? You know, and and here's another thing we got to understand as human beings, and this is for another show. I'm not going to go into it today, but we do carry a lot of baggage around too. Okay, we have a lot of baggage from the past that we don't really need to necessarily compound our problems with. Okay, absolutely. We carry around too much baggage, folks. That's a good thing to lose. Okay, if you misplace that, that's kind of good in a way because it frees you up more to be more the person you need to be once you get rid of that excess baggage. But there are important things that you don't about you that you don't want to turn up missing with. There are important pieces of you that you don't want to get gone. And like I said, that's your sympathy with others. You can sympathize with other people. You can empathize with other people. You're not one that gets compromised easily. You lose that. And that's what I said about that compromise stuff. You got to watch that because that is doing some very bad stuff to you in some ways. Okay. You can be good. You can be compromised in a good way, but usually it's mostly in a bad way that you got to watch out for, definitely. But, and another thing that we never lose, by the way, we never lose bad habits. You ever notice that? You never lose them. One day you wake up and say, I don't do that anymore. That doesn't usually happen. We wish you
Now that
would.
takes practice. Totally takes
Yeah.
practice to get rid of those bad habits, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. And, it's easier to form bad habits than it is to, form good habits. It's easier to gain weight than it is to lose weight. That's the way it goes in this world. But definitely, and another thing, though, that we can start missing and we can have in our lives, we can have undue influences, not just from the media, not just from newspapers and TV and movies and games and all this. We can have bad people around us that influence us in the wrong way. We've all had friends that every time you meet up with them, they just bring you down. They're always something right going on with them. They just depress you when you meet them. We've all known people like that. And those people are very sad because they've got a lot of missing parts. They've got a lot of missing parts, and they don't mind telling you about it too. They don't mind sharing that with you. But they've got to the point that we don't want to get to. We don't want to. You're going to lose some parts eventually. You're going to lose. That's just life. But you got to be very careful to not lose too many parts, especially the most important parts. You don't want to turn up missing on you, and they are the things that make you a human being. That's the important parts of you that make you what you are. They're part of you, not just your mind and your intellect and your mental capacity, but they are part of your very soul itself, your very spirit that you are, the very essence of what you are. And you've got to guard those things very well, folks. We need to do that, and we need to keep a watch on them. That's why I say every now and then we need to stop and examine ourselves. I don't care if it's on a daily basis, we need to do it. You need to really take a long, hard look at that person in the mirror who's looking back at you sometimes. And you got to say, oh, is that the person I really once knew? Has that person lost some stuff? Have they changed so much that I don't even know who they are anymore? You got a problem. Okay, you lost touch with yourself. You got some missing parts that may be very important. And some of the things that you miss can influence the people around you. If you have no more empathy, that tends to really deaden love for anything or any animals, for your animals, or your friends, or your family. It starts putting that wall up there that you don't want on your emotions. It starts walling you up. And you don't want that because you're missing important parts of you. And you got to be very careful. That's what my main aim with this talk about today is to warn you to watch that. You know, we all have a tendency to go that way because there are outside influences, but also these changes can come from within us ourselves. We have bad experiences of situations like a bad marriage or a bad relationship, bad friendship, whatever the situation is, that can change us this way too if we're not careful. But it can take away some of the most important good parts of us if we're not careful. That's what we've got to watch out for. We want to remain constant as much as possible. We don't want to change drastically who we are. Now, I'm saying we can't be better people, and that's a good goal. You're always striving to be a better person than what you are. Absolutely. That should be one of the things you never lose. That should be one of the things you never change, that you're always trying to be a better person. That is progress. Absolutely. And you don't ever want to forsake that. But some people lose that. They get to the point where I just don't care anymore. I don't care anymore, don't bother me anymore. I've been done so bad this way, I've been done so bad that way. I just don't care anymore. That is a dangerous situation to get in because you're really losing the very essence of who you are, and you're losing your emphasis on life itself. So you don't want to go that route. You don't want to lose that. So that's another very important part of you. You've got to watch, okay, so that you don't become despondent towards life and all that. Just because bad things happen, I have a lot of people ask me, Shanty, all the time. I'm a good person. I try to treat people right. I try to do the right thing. I try to, help people wherever I can, and I still have bad things happen to me. Why is that? Bad things still happen to me. I said, well, join the club. It happens to everybody. Okay. You're not special. I'm not special. It rains on the just and the unjust alike. Okay. Unless you got an umbrella. It's a good thing to carry an umbrella, definitely. But it's going to do that to all of us. Okay. And I point
I
out one
think,
important thing.
Dennis, sorry, I want to
Ma'am?
just say something there because I think that, yeah, life is certainly about having positive as well as negative experiences. You know, I believe in spiritual alchemy. I really do because, and when I say that, for me, the law, God's law, is that energy, and we are all created from energy, right? Energy can
Hmm?
never be created or destroyed, only ever transferred or transformed. So you're either going to push it away, pain and heartbreak, into another compartment and not deal with it, and like a cupboard, like a spare cupboard in your spare bedroom of your house, you put all the rubbish in there, but after so many years it gets moldy and full of moths and rats.
That's
So
very,
like
that's
anything.
very much like that baggage I talked about. That's we're gonna
Well,
have to talk. We have to do a show on that one day on nothing but baggage. Yeah, because you're storing stuff away that you need to get rid of. That it's never gonna do you any good. That's holding you
but
back.
it's not even getting rid of it. It's about, you see, because that's exactly where I say energy can never be created or destroyed, only ever transferred or transformed. So you're either going to put it away somewhere, or you're going to look at it and you're going to say, when people like your friend was saying bad things still happen to me, I'm a good person. That's, in my experience, that unfortunately is not how life works. If you are good to others all the time, life is seldom good to you. And then why is that? For me, it's very simple, because the first person you need to be good to is you. How many people run around doing everything for everyone, being these martyrs in life, and have no energy, have no what they are, just a
Well,
running
they're playing
rat.
games. They're playing games with
Well,
you, definitely. Yeah.
the problem is a lot of people don't even know they're playing games. It's like some people just believe that's their lot in life. Some men just believe their lot is to work, 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 and never have a day off and make sure their kids are taken care of. Some women believe it's their lot in life just to be abused and sit there and take whatever. When you are doing that, you are dishonoring your spirit. The first person that you have to be good to is you. You have to look at yourself and say, where are my hurts? What do I need to heal? Where do I need to learn to say no, put down a boundary, instead of taking everyone's burdens and making them my own? You see, that's what we tend to do in life. And when we can understand that as long as I'm not taking care of me, I can in no way take care of those around me. So I need to look after my spiritual health, my emotional health, because if I look at, for example, what I went through, my fiance was killed in a hijacking, and that for me was the turning point in my life. It's why I do what I do today. It's what made me become the healer that I am. I always maintain he died for me. He died to show me the strength that I am, the capacity that I am to have compassion, to forgive. Because after that, I met the murderer. I went to meet his murderer in jail. I showed compassion. I forgave, and it's because of that I do what I do today. Had I been eaten up alive by anger, resentment, hatred, I would be fighting a fight with the devil in his dungeon right now, and constantly being angry. Your own anger eats you up alive. But when you choose to transform that, and when you choose to turn, I'm busy writing a kid's book at the moment, and we call it The Swamp of Sorrow. When you choose to rise from the swamp of sorrow and you learn to fly with your beautiful wings again, that your invisible wings that God has given you, and that's all frequency related. My question to God was not why did it happen? I said, show me why. Show me why, God, I have to experience this loss, because I understand the opposite of loss is huge spiritual gain. I didn't want money.
Well,
I didn't
see,
want resources. I
you
wanted
can't count.
I wanted my
You,
heart to grow and to heal. And that's what I did.
you
I
came out
chose
with
that and I
something
did.
good. You came out with
Yeah,
something good, Matthew, from a bad situation. That's always a good thing. You're gaining a part and not missing a part of yourself. You're gaining a
I'm
part, and this is
transforming it.
part also of healing. This is how you heal.
Totally.
Yeah, just the way you got to go to be able to heal, to release these things. But you can turn it. It's like I've said this about fear. We've talked about a lot about fear over the years. Fear. Everybody's going to get fearful of something at one time or another. We're just human beings, okay? If somebody comes up to you and says, I don't get scared, they're lying to you, okay? They don't believe them. But that's part of being human. Fear is part of being human. But we can do something with that fear. We can be either victims of it or we can turn it and use it for our own benefits. And that's like what these experiences we're talking about today, the parts that you get missing. You don't want to do that. You want to keep those parts safe because they are very valuable parts of you that you need to operate with. Okay. It's just like, somebody hides your glasses and you can't see anymore. You can't see how to read anything anymore. You got a bad missing part here. Okay. And these things can be part of us. And it's just like with your experience. You had a horrific thing happen to you. You lost somebody that you cared for. somebody that you love, for no good reason at all. I mean, we do know these things happen with disease and all that, but that was a horrific way to lose somebody. But my grandmother used to say that, bad things are going to happen to you, but you can get something good out of it.
Got to
You
rise
got
above it.
healing. You got an understanding of how to heal out of it. You acquired something good out of that terrible situation. And that's what we need to do. We don't want to lose these missing, we don't want to turn up with missing parts of ourselves. We want to keep them intact because that's what helps us heal. That's what helps us live. That's what helps us expand our consciousness. This is what helps us be the people that we need to be. If we've got parts missing, we're not complete. We're not whole. We're not going the right way. Okay, and that's my emphasis today. If you're trying to heal from a situation, if you're trying to make a better person out of yourself, you got to have the parts to do it with. You don't want to start. You don't want to turn up missing parts of yourself. And that's why I say you need to examine yourself and say, hey, what's going on with me here? What's going on with me? This is part of not only the growing part of you, growing spiritually, but it is the healing part of you that you need to contact and get in touch with as well.
We are all, all of us are our own healer, Dennis. That's the thing. As a healer for 30 years, one thing I know for sure is that when you choose to heal your inner wounds, your psyche, your emotions, when you make that decision, it's you and God. And it's like when you have that relationship with your creator where you choose that healing. In my situation, for me, my sister was amazing. And she said to me, there's two things, Chantelle, that can happen here now. She said, you're either going to become South Africa's white Winnie Mandela, were her words, because at that stage, Winnie Mandela was super angry, burning everyone with tires. That's what we had experienced. Yeah, we speak about that often. Or you're going to turn the situation around and you are going to understand God's gifts in a way you never did before. And that's what I chose. And that's why I say, had it not been for that, I would not be sitting here today. I wouldn't have the answers that I do. I wouldn't have the depth of understanding that I do. And that has come through choosing to look at every, and not just that one. I've had lots of challenging situations in my life. It's about choosing to look at every challenging situation in your life and saying, what do I need to learn through this? Not, you bastard, look what you did. You broke my heart. You such a SOB. You player, you whatever. No, you the one that has attracted the player or the SOB. Let's just be clear on that. Why did you need that experience? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Why did I choose why did I need the experience of being betrayed? Why did I need the experience of losing a loved one? Because some things are completely out of our control. And when they're out of our control, that's when we feel angry with God. Many people that I've spoken to, that's the time they become atheists. And I'm going, I can
Absolutely.
understand why you become an atheist, but I can also understand why you would choose God, your divine creator, at this time to hold your heart, to show you the healing that you require. And when we make that choice, it's a heart choice. It's not a head choice, it's a heart choice. And when we make that choice, your whole heart starts filling, and the wounds that you experience start dissolving. God gives you understanding. God shows you in dreams. God shows you through insights what you needed to learn through that. And it's a beautiful thing. But only when you accept that you choose to transcend the pain, does God teach you. God won't show you before that. It's only once you've said, yes, I'm ready to see God. I'm ready to forgive. I'm ready to let go. I'm ready to just come back to love. I'm ready to come back to love. That's when you're in love, when you see the truth, because love is truth. Satan is a lie. It's that simple. So we always come back to God in our heart. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's very true. And like I said, about the baggage, that you retain, you don't want to hold on to that baggage because it's keeping you from doing a lot of these things. It's holding you back, and that's a very important thing you got to remember about that. But a very valuable part of ourselves, like you're talking about there, is the fact that we can take something negative and turn it positive. We got to always remember we have choices. And that's another important part of us. We have certain choices that we can make on our own part. A lot of people, they give up on us. Oh, it happened to me. I couldn't do anything about it. It was beyond my control. That's not true. It's usually your choices that you have, and they're very important. And if you don't try to turn something negative into a positive way, you're not going to come out good with that. And you're going to keep that baggage there. Like if something bad happened to you in the past, or you did something bad in the past. I've had a lot of people come to me, Shandy, over the years, say, "Oh, I can't get forgiven. I've done some terrible things. I've done some bad things." And I said, don't let those things hold you hostage. Don't let them keep you back from doing asking for forgiveness.
Exactly.
Definitely, you don't want to do that because that's what they want to do. They want to keep you in a state of unforgiveness that you're
Mm,
locking yourself into. And like you said, God is freedom. Satan is slavery. It wants to, chain you to these things, and that's the past. And then you can't do any more about the past. It's gone. It's gone. There's nothing. There's not a whole lot you can do in the present about the past. Okay, but you can, as a choice, what you do with that past. You say what you let it do to you, how it motivates you, how it changes you into being a better person. You can let it do you that way. That's the way. Just like I was saying about fear. Fear, you're going to have fear. You can turn tail and run from a gorilla, okay? But if you use the fear and scare the gorilla off and use fear in the right way, you can preserve yourself. Hopefully the gorilla will run, okay? That's the way it goes. I run into bears. Okay, out in the forest, I spent a long time out in the woods tracking cryptids and stuff like that. I've run up on bears a lot, okay? And usually you handle the situation correctly, you're going to probably walk away from that, unless the bear's having a very bad day, okay, or something like that. You definitely don't want to mess with that. But if you handle it the right way and don't let fear get in, let me tell you this, okay, if you turn tail and start running from that bear, it's going to chase you. That's the wrong thing, okay? That's the wrong thing you don't want to do. If you stand there and psych the bear out, scare him a little bit, saying, show him you're not scared, he's going to use this, say, well, I don't want to mess with you, I'm leaving, and he'll walk off. That's it. But you're using fear the right way if you do it that way. You're channeling it the right way, okay? But
right.
we don't channel a lot of things the right way. That's what we got to watch out for. And if we lose those certain pieces of ourselves that aren't there anymore to help us do these things, we need to preserve those pieces of us and watch them carefully. Make sure when they do change, and we are changing animals, that's us, okay? We're constantly changing. When they do change, they need to change in the right way, the positive way, not the negative way. Okay. And if things from outside, an outside force is trying to change us negatively, we need to spin it positively. Okay. That's the way to work it. Because if you don't, then it will change and steal stuff from you. Very important stuff that you need to keep. Now, like with your experience now, this horrific thing you had happen to you, you could have turned out to been a very bitter, angry person. You could have just hated everybody for that. You could have ruined your whole life just because of that. That's what darkness wants you to do. Don't you understand? That's why it wants to keep you a victim in these circumstances. The victim
Mm,
is powerless. It has no power. Okay, that's where they want you. Don't fall for that. That's an old trick. Okay, that's one of the basic tricks they have. That's the big lie they sell you. Don't buy the lie. Okay, that's my motto. Don't buy the lie. All right, don't believe these things because they're trying to take parts of you away from yourself. Very important parts that you don't want to end up missing. Don't let them do that to you. And that's why I say you need to examine yourself on a regular basis and say, oh, how am I doing with this? Or how am I doing with that? And work with that and understand that's part of the healing process. It's just like if I had a
Yeah.
wound on my leg and I dressed that wound. And I've been taught a lot in my time about how to, keep people from bleeding out and stuff like this. I've taken a lot of courses in medical stuff. If I treat that wound and do what needs to be done with that wound, it's going to heal. It's going to always be a scar there. You got to recognize that. There's going to be an old scar there, just like, bad experiences will scar you. But you can heal from them if you do it correctly. But you got to do it correctly, or it ain't going to ever heal. And if I keep messing around with that wound and don't treat it the way it needs to be treated, it's never going to heal. It's going to probably get infected, and I'm going to lose some part of me if I'm not careful. And you don't want to lose important parts of yourself, not just even the disease, but things like this. You want to preserve yourself as much as possible in a good way. This is not only healing, but it is the essence of being. It is the essence of what you are. It is your existence that you're looking at here in that regard. So it's not only just to heal, it's very essential that you do these things because, like I say, don't remain shackled to the past. Don't remain shackled to the bad things. You need to use those experiences like Shandy did. You need to use those experiences and move on from them in a good way, in a positive way, not a negative way. Because if you go in a negative way, it's only going to end up eating you up alive. If you live with negativity long enough, and I've had that experience with people who have had problems with the demonic, and over the years, they've asked me stupid questions like, sure, I got demons in my house. Can I learn to live with them? No, they will eventually destroy you. That's what their purpose is. You can't do that. You can't embrace that negativity, folks. You got to turn that negativity most of the time as possible into positivity stuff, into a positive thing, attitude, an outlook. You can even form. Here's a surprise for you. If you try, you can even form good habits. Yes, you can. If you try, you can do it. It takes a little more determination than forming bad habits. Okay, but you can do it. You can do it, and that's the thing
But the
about this.
wonderful thing, Dennis, sorry,
Mhm.
I want to just say here, the wonderful thing about forming good habits is that when you start doing them, you realize the benefit of them. And then it just becomes a natural thing that you do. It becomes a natural part of life. So it really is. I mean, it's good. It's good. And then it's not even like doing something anymore. You just do it because it's normal.
Absolutely. That's like good habits. You get a good reaction from it. You get something good out of it. And that should make a very big motivation type thing for you. That should be a motivation for you to do that. Just like, if you eat right, you lose weight. Hey, that's a great benefit. But it's also making you healthier all over, not just your weight. You got to look at the big picture too. A lot of times when we have problems, we focus in too much on it when we need to get back sometimes and look at the whole thing
Yeah.
and say, hey, how's
Give
this
it
going with
space.
this? We tend to do that. And sometimes, and here's what we can be guilty of, and people get mad at me for saying this a lot of times, but we can't overthink things too sometimes. We can't overthink them too much. We need to be sometimes we can underthink them. We don't need to go that way either. We need to keep it on an even keel and a level there at what we're looking at and trying to understand whatever the situation is by looking at it from its different angles. It's just like a diamond. If you hold a diamond up to the light, you will never appreciate its beauty if you just look at it from one side. You got to look at it from all many different directions to really understand what that diamond truly is, the true beauty of that diamond has many different facets. You got to look at it from different points of view to encompass the whole. And that's the way you got to do with your problems. You got to turn that problem. We have an old saying in the South. You turn it upside down, inside out, and backwards and forwards till you find out what's going on with it. And that's what you got to do with problems, or you'll never solve them and you'll never grow from them. And that's what happens with bad experiences too. Just like say, okay, I'm just going to give you an example. Say like one night you get carjacked. They come and steal your car, stick a gun in your face and steal your car. This happens to a lot of people, unfortunately. Most of the time, people come out in a good way, they just lose an automobile, okay? It's better to do that than to lose your life, definitely. But they get a very bad experience like that happen to them, and that just sours them on mankind itself. I don't trust anybody anymore. I don't like anybody. I don't care anymore. I was done bad this way. I was done that way. And they can blame a certain color of people, a certain race of people, a certain religion of people for what happened to them. They blame all of them. That's just the way it goes. They take that bad experience, and guess what they do, Jenny? They make it worse. They make it worse. When you need to take that bad experience and try to get something good out of it. You could say, hey, at least they didn't shoot me. They got my car, but they didn't shoot me. I'm still alive to tell you about it. I've been in situations like that. And I know, you come out on the other end and say, hey, I'm glad I'm here to tell the story. Okay. It could have went the other way. Definitely real quick. So that's the outlook we need with all of life. We got to understand that. And just like Shandy was saying, this is part of the healing process. You can't do without this part of the healing process, so you're not going to heal. Okay, that's just the way it goes. But this is part of the process of life as well. Absolutely.
Absolutely, and I think we have to understand that life is yet to teach us, and we're either going to choose to be taught or we're going to resist that which we've come here to learn. And we can, none of us can deny that every single day is a learning process. We're not going to learn to swim in the tidal waves if we don't learn to surf, right? So if you're just going to play in the baby pool for the rest of your life, and you're never going to learn how to surf those waves. So only a rough sea creates a skilled sailor. So we have to learn how to navigate life's challenges. And we have to understand, because as a healer for 30 years and as someone who's been through lots of challenges myself, there's one thing I always understand, is that everything negative is an opportunity to show you the truth. Every betrayal is an opportunity to show you the truth. Every deception is an opportunity to show you the truth. So when lies, deception, manipulation happens, it's not about manipulating and lying back and getting back in that bun fight, because that just keeps you in the matrix of self-despair. The question you ask yourself is, what do I need to learn through this? Show me, God, the truth. What is the truth here, God? Show me the truth. My eyes are open. And you pray and you meditate. And I promise you, God will show you what you need to see if you're watching. Because God speaks through signs. God speaks in many ways. You've got to be receptive, and you have to be open to, I always say, expect the unexpected, because you will be shown in unexpected ways just how amazing life is, how amazing your creator is, how amazing your fellow human being is. I choose to see that all the time. We see so much shitty things in the world, but I can quite honestly say the people that I choose to surround myself with are freaking amazing. I have a wonderful family. I have wonderful friends. I have a wonderful community. I have wonderful guests. I have wonderful siblings. I have a wonderful granddaughter. I have a wonderful son. I'm blessed. And when we start looking at the little things in life, we start taking, if there's only one thing that you can feel grateful for today, then focus on that. If it's Only your eyes that see that you're grateful for today. Then say 1,000,000 times, thank you, God, for my eyes that see. Thank you, God, for my 10 flexible fingers. Thank you, God, for my toes. If that's all you can see to be that for anything you can be grateful for, that's all you do. And then watch how God shows you other blessings as well. We are all blinded sometimes. We are all walking in the shadows. We often don't see the things we need to see. So that is why we have amazing friends around us. That is why we have faithful friends, partners, um, business people who can be there when we need them to be our eyes. But you can only receive that from someone if you are that for another already. So be the person you choose to meet, be the partner you want to be. Become that first, and then you'll attract it in another. Don't demand that people are faithful to you and good to you and loyal to you if you aren't good to yourself, or if you aren't loyal to yourself, or if you are being an ass to yourself. In other words, always selling yourself short. Don't sell yourself short. You're worthy, you're loved, you're appreciated. And that is what our Creator wants us all to know. When we step into that truth, there is nothing that will take you down. No amount of direct energy weapons, no amount of black magic coming your way, no amount of anything. Joanne, my wow. Dennis, look what we got tonight.
Oh,
Thank you, Joanne. Wow, beautiful. Bless you.
that's so true,
And we'll
Shanty.
maybe take
I have seen people who have been brought to the edge of the cliff, and they've reached the dead end in their lives, a lot of times. And I've told them, you still have choices. You still have a choice here. As long as you're alive and there's breath in you, you still have choices you can make. There's not a true end. There's not a true dead end road there. It just looks like that sometimes. You may have think that you've painted yourself into a corner, but there are always choices. But there are bad choices and good choices, okay? And you definitely want to make the good choices in these situations. Absolutely. That's another part of the healing process. But in order for God, and of course, we tend to blame God for everything bad that goes on. Okay. Oh, God, why didn't you do this? And why didn't you do that? I feel sorry for God sometimes because he doesn't really deserve any of that. Okay. He had nothing to do with it. But we tend to do that. And instead of blaming somebody, for our own choices, we need to look at ourselves and say, why did I do that? Why did I make that choice? Or why did I do
exactly.
this with that certain situation? That's why self examination is a very important thing. You don't want to lose that above all things. You don't want to lose that because that shows you the essence of the choices that you have and have made. um, don't blame somebody else for things that you've done yourself. Okay, own up to what you're doing there. That's part of the healing thing as well. It's like they talk about with Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, realizing that you have a problem solves half the problem right there. Okay, that's half the problem solved. And if you realize you got a problem with that choice or decision that you made, you need to examine it very closely and say, why could I do better with this? And that's why I agree with you what you said, Shanny. Instead of sitting around moaning and groaning all the time about what's going on, you need to do something about it. God has given you the talent to do that. God has given you gifts to do that. He has given you things. He's given you family and friends to help you do that. He's given you a lot of stuff. Open yourself to that. Don't close yourself off. You got to open yourself up to God. Jesus said in the Bible, God is a spirit. Therefore, he must be worshiped in what? Spirit and in truth. That's how you got to worship God. That's how you meet God. You have to open yourself up to that God influence. Don't cut yourself off. That is the beginning of solving a lot of your problems. That is the beginning of truly healing. in many different ways. That is the beginning of realizing the right choices to make. That's the way you'd have to go. Don't ever lose that missing part of your body. You don't ever want to start missing that, because if you do, you're in bad shape. You're in worse shape than the Frankenstein monster is, okay? As far as I know, he didn't lose too many parts. And you don't want to go that way either, okay? But that's very important that we remember that. And so let's not keep start blaming everybody else for things that we've done. Let's stop doing that, because that's just a waste of time and energy, okay? Let's direct our energy in good ways and in positive ways and in building things and not tearing them down. And that includes people, folks. If you see somebody you know, family, friends, whatever, don't tear them down. Don't depress them that day. They don't need that. They don't look for that. Okay, they need you to build them up. They need you to compliment them. Tell them how much you love them. Tell them how much you appreciate them. Tell them how smart they are, how pretty they are. Whatever the situation is, you need to compliment those people and tell them and build them up, not be tearing. And that includes situations, not just people. You know, if you got a certain situation going on, you need to handle it the right way. You need to build that situation to where it needs to be, not tear it down sometimes, you know, because that's the destructive part of these things. Yeah, we want to be constructive, not destructive. Definitely.
Right, exactly. It's called resurrecting. Construction is resurrecting. Well, I
Yeah.
think all of us in this life have had our challenges, and all of us, if we're sitting here, I'm pretty sure we have all done quite a bit of growing. We wouldn't be sitting here unless we haven't. So I just love the fact that again, I'm turning 5 with you all next week. And we got a little brother, by the way, guys, but come and watch next week. I'll tell you about our little brother. We have a little brother channel now, too. So awesome. Looking forward to that. And yes, Dennis, it's been amazing just hearing as well. You know, it's such a changing time and things are happening so quickly. And I think so many people are like spinning on upside down on their heads sometimes. And it really is just a time to take a breath, breathe deep, sit, pray, meditate, be still. And when you do, you know, my favorite Bible verse is be still and know that I am God. And honestly, if you can get your mind quiet through breathing, deep breathing, because your mind and your breath are intrinsically linked, you will see your breath calms your thoughts down and gets you to a place where you can still the mind, and then your rational thoughts start surfacing, then, not the chaotic, frenzied thoughts anymore. So, on that note, I appreciate you all so much in the chats. I appreciate you all on this channel. Joanne, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I owe that little Jonas of mine. My little kangaroo is Jonas and Dusty. I owe their mama a great big hug when she comes to visit. Thank you, Joanne. That is a very generous donation. I really, really appreciate you. Appreciate you all. Thank you for watching, guys. Dennis, is there anything you just want to wrap up with before you end off for us?
Oh well, I'm just thinking that definitely, that looking in on ourselves and reflecting on things we do from time to time, we definitely need to stay in touch with that, definitely, and of course, meditation and prayer, absolutely. One of my favorite biblical passages is one that's been stuck in my head for a while now. I don't know why it is. It's just stuck there, and it goes like this: "For you have not been given a spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind." And that is
Yeah.
very, very powerful when you think about it. And that's what you've been given. And it's yours. All you need to do is embrace it. take it. When somebody gives you a gift, it's not yours unless you take it. So reach out and take that and embrace it. It's very important that you do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Dennis, thank you. Amy, thank you so, 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 so much. What is AED, by the way? What currency is that? I'm trying to, I mean, for no particular reason, and I'm just curious. What is AED? It's not Australian dollars. If you can pop up what AED is, that'd be very cool, just for my curiosity. So I want to
I
say
think.
thank you, guys. Dennis,
Yeah.
do you wanna end off for us in prayer?
Yes, let's do that. Let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you today for all the wonderful people who have been in this chat. I thank you so much for people like Shanti and all the other people out there that are looking for the truth and exposing the truth for what it is in our lives and showing us pathways that we need to take in the healing and being the people that you want us to be. We thank you for that today, Lord, and we also ask that everyone who has listened to this show today, that you will bless them, that you will touch their lives in a special way, in a way that they have never felt before, that they will know you and understand you in ways that you want to reveal yourself to them in. We thank you, Lord, also that you will put your hedge of protection around all of us, that you will send your holy angels to guard over us in all our ways, in our coming and in our going. We thank you for all these things in the mighty name of Jesus Christ, the one name to which all power is given in heaven and in earth, and also in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost. We humbly pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dennis. Amy, I thought that was actually UAE, but I wasn't sure. Listen, I had the best times in the UAE. I was in Dubai, I was in Abu Dhabi, I was hanging around, and I got to tell you, I've had that. I mean, other than the UAE being so busy, and another one. Wow, thank you so much, old fashioned heart. You are so appreciated. Wow, we are so blessed, Dennis. How blessed are we today, Dennis? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I was in Abu Dhabi, Amy. I had the best times there, really. The UAE for me was amazing. I loved it. I really, really loved it. And I would like to go back again. And what was nice is I never went as a tourist. My friend is, she's actually Jordanian, and her family lives over in the UAE. And I went over, I was there in 2019. 2019, I was there. Yeah, amazing. And I even went to Cape to Cairo. Nowadays in the UAE, you can actually go for cocktails. 2019, I was there. 2019. Guys, thank you so, so much. God bless you all. Take good care. And I will see you tomorrow with a beautiful Holly Baglio. Up until then, just don't be good.